Oh, hello, everybody.
Howdy.
Howdy,
What a rockin' song.
welcome to Crossing the Streams, the number one show in 43 countries. We haven't really ran those stats in a while. And we honestly were slipping a little bit, and then Zach came back a couple times, and boom, just kind of blew us up. So thank you, Zach.
Star power. It's
My
all
pleasure.
Star power.
It's a little bit I can give back. That's it.
And then Casey, Ryan Plott actually coming in, and then it's just the whole combination of everything. It's just
I'm just really hoping not to drop the numbers. That's
just
you've been a cheerleader for us in so many episodes. We appreciate you coming in from the side.
I love you guys. I love being on screen with y'all. It's wonderful.
And we love Lee, who's awake, joining us. Yeah.
Hi, Lee. Good to see you, sweetie.
All right, we got a really kind of today's May the 4th. And so it's so we're gonna have a little banter up front, but I think the majority of the conversation we're gonna just kind of share stories about Star Wars and what we think of some of the movies. We have some naysayers of the Star Wars legacy with us, and then some lovers, and then and really that's it, just one hater. I
might surprise
That's
you.
enough.
Zach,
No haters
we do have a couple guests. So, we didn't do a theme song. I got so excited about Star Wars. All right, let's do a theme song. All right, Zach, I'm gonna let you kick it off.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Here's the story of some lovely fellows who spend way too much time watching the TV. All of them have jobs and friends, except for Casey, but just between you and me.
Go ahead, Casey.
They made a live show out of their hobby. Every TV watcher's TV watching dream. Jeff, Ron, Sal, and Bob, and there's Howard. They call it Crossing
Love the
Streams.
vibrato.
Ooh,
That
nice
was
rendition.
Oh, good job.
Howie.
And then one day they went live on all the platforms. You could hear the people laugh and shout and scream. Still can't find another word that rhymes with platform. But man, we crossed the stream.
We crossed the stream.
We crossed the
stream.
We crossed the streams.
That's
the
the
way
way
we do it. Here we cross the streams.
Man, we always break up right there. So it's awesome. So real quick, Jerry and I are going to be announcing. We'll DM the winner of the contest, which ended on the 30th. So one lucky person has won a drawing. I can tell you it's no one here.
Well,
But Zach,
I gotta go.
Sorry. But while you're watching, just remember Jerry and Carmen's drinking game rules during the show. Please enjoy yourself and drink and watch TV responsibly. If we drink, you drink. If there's a technical issue, drink. If you have to be asked what platform a show is on, drink. If we put someone's name on the screen, drink. If we forget an actor's name, drink. Yay, that's a lot of drinking.
A lot of drinking. That's why we love this show.
That's why, real quick, we still stand with Ukraine.
Yes,
indeed.
Still going. They're fighting. They're fighting and doing what they can. So our hearts and souls are with them. All right. So what else we got? Last week on Crossing the Streams, we had covered Meat Eater, the mystery of Marilyn Monroe. What was that? Dark? What is that? Dark. It was just dark. And Shark, one of the greatest movies ever made, Sharknado.
No, Dark is great.
Agreed.
And so, yeah, enjoy that.
What was the mystery of Marilyn Monroe? What was it? What did it mean?
Oh, she died. Was she murdered? Was she murdered?
Oh,
Murdered.
You see, Kim Kardashian wore her dress to the Met Gala.
Super classy.
Yeah. Well, I never could get though. Was that the actual dress that she wore?
I think
to sing
so.
Happy Birthday to...
She wore the actual dress, the famous one, just walking up the stairs, and then changed into a replica for the rest of the
okay. All right. Howard,
not spill anything. Not spill anything on the good one. Smart.
Yeah.
Pete Davidson wore Pete Davidson wore adult clothes for the first time, so that was nice to see.
Yeah,
it was shocking.
But he was high, so.
No, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Jerry has gifted.
Oh, nice.
Hey, Jerry
Nice.
Chacon, thank you,
Parting
sir.
gifts.
What has Casey Ryan Plot ever given us? Nothing.
Love, adoration.
Yeah.
Yes.
Casey Ryan plot twist.
Casey Ryan.
Ah, there it
Oh, I
is.
like that. I like that.
Working
All right,
on it.
so today is
Oh,
May the
wait.
4th. Oh, you want to?
Before we jump into it, yeah, it's not a rant. It's just
Not a rant?
a story. But go ahead. I could use my. So before we jumped on air, we were doing our show prep. We were doing our show prep, and we were talking about Sam Raimi directing Doctor Strange that comes out this week, and Bob was saying that one of Sam Raimi's films that he absolutely loved was The Oz, the Great and Powerful. And I was just going to tell a quick funny story. That movie was filmed here in Detroit when there were huge film incentives in the state of Michigan, and so they filmed it just in a city called Pontiac. There was a big studio, and the woman that they hired locally to be the choreographer for the movie was a good friend of mine at the time, Leslie Kay, and she lived just about a half mile away from me, and she used to have these great parties. She had this kind of party house in a little suburb called Royal Oak. So one night I was over there was a bunch of people, and she had mentioned that a bunch of people from the movie were going to stop by. Literally about 11:30 at night, the door opened, and there were 15 or 16. It looked like an entire NBA basketball team, everybody 6'8" or taller. And then there was also about 15 or 16 little people, and they were the Giants and the Munchkins in the Oz and Great and Powerful, and they all rolled into the party at the same time. And it's like I had to think, look at it, how much have I had to drink? Like, this is really creepy at the same time. Like, am I in a movie right now? This is very weird. I felt like I was in Oz. It was pretty funny though, and I've never seen.
Actually, our friend's ex-wife was a stand-in for one of I think Mila Kunis's character. One of the witches.
Right?
Yeah.
Who's Dan's ex-wife?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. It makes sense. Yeah, but and the Munchkins drank like nobody I've ever seen. Every
too.
one of them.
I would too if I was.
Oh,
a
heavily.
Munchkin.
It was crazy.
Heavily.
All right, that's my. Sam
Well,
Raimi.
I met Sam Raimi once. It was at a Shiva, which is like a Jewish wake. So, I wasn't sure it was him because he looks just like a Jewish guy, and so I was at a Jewish thing, and I couldn't, But then I saw Ted Raimi, and Ted Raimi's got a very distinct look, and I'm like, oh well, if that's Ted Raimi, that's for sure Sam Raimi. But because, like I said, it was someone had died, I met Ted Raimi, but I didn't take any pictures or anything like that. I didn't feel it was appropriate.
Sam Raimi, right?
And so we're in the service, and Sam Raimi walks down and literally stands right next to me. We're like shoulder to shoulder. And I turn to him and I say, sorry for your loss. And he extends his hand and goes, hi, I'm Sam Raimi. He goes, thank you, I'm Sam Raimi. And I go, hi, I'm Jeff. But in my head, I'm exploding.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course you're fucking Sam Raimi. Oh my fucking God. I'm doing everything I can to contain myself right now. And so that was my Sam Raimi story. Anyway.
Nice.
Very nice story.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So since it's May the 4th, we thought we'd maybe, and the show happens to be today, we thought maybe we'll just kind of reflect on Star Wars in general, because this is something that's, it's decades and decades and decades and has had many lives. And so it probably means different things to different people. And we thought we'd just maybe have a conversation.
Sure.
So I can start and say that I saw Star Wars. One of the reasons it kind of has an affinity for me is I was 7 when I saw Star Wars, and it was on my birthday, and this is when movies were in theaters for like 10 years, right?
Yeah,
right.
And
there were 4 movie theaters,
right? And so I remember we went and we saw the movie. I loved it. I probably even saw it twice. And we come home and the lights are out. All the lights had gone out. And we went to our neighbor's house and we kind of had this thing. And then I think we ordered pizza and then the lights came on, but then we turned the lights back off because just for the, and it was like that story kind of sticks with me with Star Wars. Like, I don't, just because I happen to have seen it that night and that's where we were coming home from. And so I've always loved it. And I remember pre-internet and all that kind of stuff talking about Empire Strikes Back and after the Empire Strikes Back, before Return of the Jedi, all those things where like here we are about moments away from a Doctor Strange 2 where literally someone went out of the way to ruin something for everyone, right?
Right.
But back then you actually had conversations and you had the same kind of conversations, but it was in public and face to face. And if you guessed something right, you didn't ruin it or you couldn't tell anyone. There really was no way to tell everyone.
Yeah.
And
right.
And it was like a whole different world where, I mean, imagine like the idea of the reveals at the end of Empire Strikes Back with no way to really ruin it. I remember going to see movies recently. Like, I remember going to see the Avengers, the one where, sorry, I think it's okay to spoil that Iron Man dies, but the one where he dies, where stuff's going to happen, right? And I remember having to stay off of Twitter, because having to go see the movie immediately, because I didn't want it to be ruined, and I had to get it out of the way. So when I did get ruined, I'd already seen it. And there was a time where that didn't happen. It didn't even exist.
1979. You know my love of boxing and Rocky, right? Except for Rocky IV, which is a piece of shit.
Wait.
I know.
It's one of the greatest victories.
I can't. I'm not going to have this argument again. It's too over the top.
You can change.
It's so bad. And the Gorbachev look-alike with the
you're fine with Rocky V. Rocky V, you're fine with. 4,
I'm okay with Rocky V. There's
the machine gun?
a little bit of legitimacy there. Even Rocky Balboa, which was 6.
Rocky Balboa was a good
6.
I love Balboa. That was great.
It was Rocky 1, right?
Yeah.
Same gritty place, and he doesn't win and all that. But anyway, my I know I'm pissing off people tonight. I'm sorry.
That's part of the fun of this, Bob.
1979. I'm in my 1979 Trans Am, and we're pulling up to the La Parisienne. This is in Westland, I think. And back then, you had the La Parisienne. You had the there was one on Plymouth Road in Middlebelt, and then there was one on the Mai Kai on Plymouth and Farmington, and then there was the Quo Vadis, and there was one at 12 Oaks. That was it. Now there's every 2 feet there's a movie theater, right? So there's people, a long winding line, and as we're pulling into the parking lot, there's people coming out, and a guy yells out, "Rocky wins!" I'm like, "Fuck!" I mean, I wanted him to win. I thought he was going to win, but it was confirmed for me. That was the Twitter of its day.
Yeah.
In 1979.
Jerks in line.
Yeah.
Wait, did Rocky didn't win the first one?
Not in the first one.
No.
Yeah.
That was the beauty of it.
And then Rocky 2, he loses, but then wins.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rocky 3, he wins.
He wins.
Rocky 4, they repeat.
He wins in 2.
Well, he loses in 3, and
first.
then has to win.
Yes, he loses to Clubber Lang in 3, and then he wins it back.
In 4, does he win? No.
Well, here's
Apollo dies.
Apollo dies, and then he
avenges his death.
Yeah.
Which in Creed 2, they make
almost as good as Rocky 4 that obviously ended the Cold War. So
correct.
Well, talk about it.
There's a whole new joke. I don't know. Well, since we're we tangented to Rocky 4. There's a director's cut of Rocky 4. That's the one with the robot.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I love the robot.
The fucking
he took
robot.
it out.
That was one of the things I hated about that movie.
Yeah,
it was bad.
Have you seen?
I have a watch.
And Adrian standing at the top of the stairs. You can't win. It was just bad. It was like, Talia, I've been in love with you since I was 14. Please stop.
Yeah, but watching him invent like barn CrossFit was pretty impressive.
Pretty amazing.
That's a good point. Barn CrossFit.
That scene itself is what created the South Park montage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Need a
Great
montage.
We're gonna need a montage. So, but back to Star Wars. So for me, I saw it at the Americana Theater right near Northland Mall, neither of which
I
exist
remember
anymore. And I remember it vividly. You know, I was so if you were 8, you were 7, I was 8. So it was the first epic, I'll say, that I remember seeing in the movie theater. You know, I remember seeing movies, and I used to go see all the Disney live action movies, the Kurt Russell films. My grandparents used to take me to see all those.
Yes,
or
Mick.
the Apple Dumpling Gang, or movies like those. So those were great. And Star Wars was life-changing in the sense that it was an epic that and it came out of nowhere. Like, you know,
Jerry.
we've
Sorry.
been looking, like, you know, Doctor Strange or Spider-Man, like it's month upon month upon month of speculation about who's going to be in it, and Star Wars came out of nowhere. You know, there's the pre-hype is a week before, but it, you know, it was just the only other movie in my life that I remember being that way, and Jeff was in the same boat as me. Just because nobody knew what it would be was when Jeff and I saw Ace Ventura, that came out of nowhere the weekend after it opened. One of the best nights, funniest nights of my life. But Star Wars came out of nowhere. But then it was just this phenomenon that, you know, grew out so fast with the collectible toys and Lego and all that stuff that came out of nowhere when we were kids. Just, you had to have, and every kid had some of it and didn't have, you know, blaster squirt guns and all that kind of stuff. It happened so quickly and ramped up. And then, you know, all of them on every one of the TV shows we watched, you know, the Sonny and Cher show and all these variety shows that we watched all the time. Well, the famous Star Wars Christmas. Yeah, it was fantastic. But not only that, but then I remember the wait and the anticipation of Star Wars coming out for the first time on home video. That was a ridiculous moment in our lives.
On TV. Remember on TV?
I do remember on TV.
8 until midnight.
Yeah. So on TVs, who used to carry all of Tommy Hearn's fights when he was
and softcore porn.
Yes.
Nice.
Squiggle vision. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, those two things just there were, you know, benchmarks in my life, you know, from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, for me, Star Wars is like such an odd thing. It has always been present in my life. I was born in 78, so I don't know what it's like to be a gentleman to see it for the first time. But my dad, he was such a fan of George Lucas. He loved the car movie American Graffiti, and he's like, hey, you know, and he went to see it with his buddies, thinking it was gonna be another car movie, and it was a space movie. And when I was born, he wanted me to be a part of something. He knew it was something big, so he took me to the theater when I was like 2 months old to see it the first time, you know. And which is, you know, cool, because my daughter was born in 99, so I took her to see Phantom Menace when she was 2 months old. But
you subjected her to that.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Yeah. So Star Wars, Star Wars is one of those things that's kind of always been around my life. It's the thing that, like, it's the only movie me and my dad ever agree on. I try to tell him movies to watch, and he's like, if it's another Pulp Fiction, I'm not going to watch it. I don't give a shit. But Star Wars is something we watch every year together. Whenever a new one comes out, I always go to theater and do the marathon and watch them all. I've consumed all of them. I own them on every single like platform. I have like those big discs,
laser disc.
Not the floppy disk, the big floppies.
Really?
I have those I have them on laser disc. I have the originals on VHS. I have the THX ones when they were re-released. I was actually in the front page of the paper because so I grew up like in the movie, like I was a Blockbuster kid. I started working at Blockbuster when I was like 16, like in the mid 90s. And when Phantom Menace came out, I was one of those guys that went and saw Meet Joe Black. Like I bought maybe 10 tickets to Meet Joe Black just because a Phantom Menace trailer was before that movie.
Wow.
And that was the only way to watch trailers. You couldn't watch it online.
Wow.
You could,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
so I would
right.
literally go into the theater, watch the trailers, and then leave. And I come back 3 hours later and watch, you know, the next trailer. And I stood up, you know, you couldn't buy tickets beforehand. So I actually put a tent outside of the Regal Cinema in Delaware. And I was the first person in line. I waited in line for 11 days to buy tickets. And I was in the front page of the paper. And the day that Phantom Menace came out, I had tickets for every single show in the same theater. And I was going to go for 24 hours. And my grandfather passed away that day. And I remember, like, there was no cell phones or anything. And I'm just in the theater all day long. And I'm like getting tired, whatever. And a friend of mine comes around 6 p.m. and he's like, hey, man, your dad's looking for you. He has no idea where you are. So I ran to the payphone and I called my dad. And he's like, you know, your grandfather just passed away. And I had to make this decision to go hang out with my family or watch Phantom Menace 4 more times. So they eventually forgave me, which is but yeah.
It's
so,
the midnight show.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I got to see it a 6th time.
And
I gotta
here, your
understand.
grandpa was doing you the greatest blessing he possibly could have done,
Yeah.
which was dying, so you
Yeah.
wouldn't have had to sit through
Just leave
the
me
Phantom
alone.
Menace.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a 4th time.
He tried to help me out, but yeah. So Star Wars has been just in every level of my life, and yeah, it's a special thing. I don't like them all, you know. Every good Star Wars fan hates most of Star Wars, but it is a special product that I'm glad exists because it means something to, like, you know, my daughter and to my dad and to you know, my dead grandfather, I guess, probably. But
means something else to him entirely.
Yeah,
completely different.
Yeah.
It's funny,
selfish
as
grandson.
as we were sitting here talking about this, I remembered the Spielberg documentary that was on HBO. I totally forgot about this. They were telling the story of they used to hang out together. They had a little group that were all best buddies. It was Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese, Coppola, and Brian De Palma. And they always used to hang out together and they go eat at a Chinese restaurant. And Lucas was so excited that he came in one day and showed him rough cuts of Star Wars. And he was so excited. It didn't have all the effects. And they said it just looked like World War II footage. But he showed it to him and they're like, okay, kind of cool. And they went to Chinese restaurant for dinner. And Brian De Palma stood up and went, I don't understand a goddamn thing about that movie because it had no context.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's starting in the middle of a story. And it was De Palma that came up with the idea to do the scroll at the beginning of the movie.
Of course, the
To
8-minute
explain
tracking
everything.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And, but I mean, it's like, God, that's a lot of talent to sit there and criticize and say, what the hell is this all about? So yeah. I
Well,
totally
didn't
forgot about
they
that.
switch points between? I think Spielberg or one of them was so convinced that Close Encounters was going to be the big one that they swapped points, one point, and so like Close Encounters was worth whatever, but Spielberg getting a point of Star Wars, I think he basically could have retired on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, thank goodness he did.
He's done okay.
He's
yeah.
all right.
He's
Look,
gonna be all right.
Let's talk about
So-
let's talk about Ewoks. I love Ewoks. I
Ewoks are great.
love Return of the Jedi. I love
like
love
that
the whole
movie.
idea that
Yeah.
it was originally going to be Revenge of the Jedi, and then they
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then they
And
changed
they were
it.
originally all Wookiees, and it just wouldn't work out that because that's how the Ewoks were. It
Is
was
that
supposed to be like a
right?
Wookiee thing, and they were looking for different toys, and they couldn't get that much fur, et cetera, et cetera. So they went down with, you know, the
Is that
Ewoks.
real?
It was
I
a
didn't
toy
know that.
decision. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Wow.
Everything's
all
a
a
toy
toy
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from
is.
you know, Empire on, it's just been a lot of just toy decisions. And I mean, it's interesting that the first one itself was even made with all the mistakes that were going on, and you know, like if George Lucas got to make the first one the way that he wanted, it would have been very weird because the opening, you know, the deleted shot that started it was
Wicked.
yeah, Wicked is the best. Also, you know, back to Ewoks though, it is weird when they did the re-release, they made the Ewoks blink. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm
That
glad
was a
they
little
blink
strange.
because they have eyeballs, obviously, but
Huh.
it's just kind of
I,
weird.
I
looking.
didn't notice.
Yeah.
I
It was one of those weird
remember
changes.
seeing some of the making of videos for the original
Mm.
and just where they came up with the sound effects for some of those things. I think the blaster sounds, if I remember correctly, were like banging a hammer on huge wire coils.
That's what it
something
was.
like
The
that.
electric
Yeah.
wires.
Yeah, some of that stuff is like that you associate with being so high tech, like the gun noise is just like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, John Sullivan, friend of the show, he's depressed Darth, and he posted a meme the other day since we're talking about Ewoks, and it's the person turning to the other person and goes, because I guess they gave Leia a dress, right? And
Right.
so they're like, the only way they would have a dress her size, it means they caught and ate someone.
Yeah, exactly. They killed someone and gave her, that was her dress.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
What?
Ewoks are fantastic. They're brutal, man.
They
Ewoks
are.
absolutely
Yeah.
brutal. They were getting ready to eat Luke and
Ewoks
Han.
killed somebody. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think I think eventually I'd only ever heard that. I didn't know it was supposed to be Wookiees. I had heard they made them small to make it much more, make the Empire look more menacing, but then make it more kind of ragtag. But it's interesting that it could have been Wookiees. Maybe they saved that for the. You'd think they would have skipped that. It didn't work well for the Christmas special.
Nothing worked well for that thing.
Though Boba Fett was created for the Christmas
cartoon,
special, a cartoon for Boba Fett, and
Is that right? I didn't know that.
The best part of that special is the B. Arthur part. I mean, her weird restaurant thing was so crazy, but it was probably the best part.
It's almost as weird as the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
I love that.
It's one of the one of the epic. What is it, an hour and a half? Or did it go 2 hours? That was such. Kiss was on there doing three songs.
3 songs, good songs.
And not Cloris Leachman, Witchy Poo from HR
and Margaret Hamilton, Wicked Witch of the West,
and who was the Brady Bunch mom?
Florence Henderson.
Florence Henderson. Yeah.
What? Oh, but that was the 70s.
The cast of that. Betty White was in that as well.
And Paul Lynde. Do you think he's gay? No, he's
no.
I mean,
He's as manly as Liberace.
He was so flamboyant.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that going, he's funny, not having any clue what any of that meant.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice to live in a world where we don't care what that means?
Yeah, you didn't care.
You skip past the Empire, and I remember the part that terrified me. The one part of that movie that terrified me was him stuffing Luke inside the Tauntaun.
Yeah.
Sliced open. That
and
was
I
the
thought
only
they smelled bad on the outside.
It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, Empire. That would have been pretty interesting because the original director was David Lynch for that. Like, George Lucas wanted David Lynch.
I didn't know that either. Really?
Yeah, he wanted, and he took David Lynch out and took him in his brand new sports car and took him to this weird vegan restaurant. And David Lynch is like, "All you have is salads. I don't eat salads." And David Lynch is like, and he's talking to me about this Wookiee, and I'm like, "What's a Wookiee?" And David Lynch is just so crazy, but he wanted to get into a big franchise, which is why he got into Dune. But yeah, so he was the original director for Empire, and that's when they switched over to Larry Kasdan after Spielberg turned it down. And I think Kasdan did a great job.
Kasdan was amazing.
The Hoth battle is probably one of the coolest sequences in all of Star Wars. It's one of the best
until they repeated it in the sequels.
Yeah,
but who was supposed to direct the third movie was Spielberg. And if you watch the documentaries, I think the thing with Star Wars was they didn't put the director name at the beginning. And because they didn't do that, Spielberg couldn't be the director because there was whatever guild they're in that was against the rules. But I think at this point, Lucas is now paying for these movies himself so he can make his own rules. And that's why Spielberg didn't do it, which is the unfortunate part about that is then years later when they did do Phantom Menace, had Spielberg directed Return of the Jedi, there's a good chance he would have directed the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But because he wasn't part of it, Lucas, I guess, just didn't really want to bring him in. You know what I mean, they had the Indiana Jones things together.
Right.
So,
which did not turn out well in their fourth movie. So,
yeah.
Right. But I have high hopes for the fifth movie.
We're hoping.
Yeah,
we'll see.
No Shia, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't think we know.
No Shia. Oh my God, yeah. But
I don't think Shia was the worst part about that movie. The funniest part about
refrigerator after the nuclear blast. That was the stupidest fucking thing.
I think it even goes before the nuclear blast, which was You know how they always did the real clever thing where they'd focus on some kind of mountain
Mhm.
and then
Yes.
they would switch to the
Yes.
logo or
Yeah.
reverse that.
Paramount into one of the
Yeah.
Right. And the
yeah.
fourth one, it was like some like rodent hill or bug
Oh
hill.
yeah, it was a
and
gopher
just-
hill.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh,
It's
that was so
foreshadowing.
disappointing. So disappointing.
This is how great it's going to be. This is the top right here. This is your
Yeah.
apex. Gopher Hill.
I loved Indiana Jones 3 though. I
Oh,
thought
absolutely.
Oh,
2 I thought was a little off, but like I don't not like it, but
It was a little
3 is
bloody.
one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
do you know how many
Uh,
times out of nowhere I find myself whispering over and over, "The power of the penitent man, the power of the penitent man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's great. 2's not good.
Yeah,
Three's-
it's not. It's
No,
not
Three's
good.
fun.
Do you know they
Not good.
renamed 1? Like when they re-release it,
Mm.
you know, for us it was Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Raiders
but
of
now
the
it's
Lost Ark.
Indiana
Jones.
Jones in the
Yeah.
Raiders.
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Lost
Oh,
Saw
It's
that.
so they
I
can
didn't know
be
that.
so the cover boxes can be next to each other at Blockbuster.
Ark.
Exactly.
Right, so
Oh,
people
okay.
can know that they go together.
Indiana Jones was the brand, not
Just like you don't,
Raiders.
who knows Army of Darkness is really Evil Dead 3.
Right. Yeah.
Who
probably not
cares?
Not
That's what I would
Bob.
say.
It's amazing, Bob.
Okay.
It's one of the greatest movies ever created. So it's unfortunate that
You know, here's what I want to know. How come Sam Raimi hasn't done more for Bruce Campbell? They're supposed to be best buddies, and all he's ever done is shoehorn him into, like, you know, this little part of this movie here. He was the thing that got Raimi's career started, right? And I
Fair.
never understood that.
Well, speaking of
Bruce
Evil
came
Dead,
off like
I-
Maniac Cop 2, so he was a big deal, I guess, at that point.
you know what you would have loved?
86?
Ash versus the Evil Dead, which was
Yeah.
a TV show on Stars, was
Mhm.
freaking amazing.
Real good.
Ash versus the Evil. Okay, I don't know
Yeah,
anything about that.
amazing.
And I don't mean to be the contrarian tonight. I'm a movie buff.
No,
obviously. I
you're
love it.
good. You're good. Let's
And
talk. Do we want to talk anything more about? You know, let's talk about before we move on to the next 3 movies. How did you guys feel when they did the special editions? I actually just had the guy who was Boba Fett in Star Wars special
Boba Fett.
edition on
Boba
the
Fett.
show.
Yeah.
But it's like, but they changed stuff, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and like Empire was one where they added dialogue, and you know they went back, and like they, you know, later they even added Hayden Christensen, like at the end of Return of the
How
Jedi.
would you add him to anything?
Yeah.
Good
Makes
Lord.
no sense. That makes no
Less is
sense.
more.
The Ghost
Makes no
Hayden
sense.
Christensen was the worst.
It makes
See,
no sense.
yeah.
Because
Seeing
why
him up
would
there was just
anyone
miserable.
know that he
Yeah.
looks like Hayden Christensen? Like that's not
Right.
anyone's memory of that person.
Exactly.
for-
You see David Prowse's face. That's who you should expect to see in the Ghost
Yeah.
form.
Give me
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Or the other old man. Whatever
Alec
his name
Guinness,
is.
not Ewan McGregor.
No, not
Exactly.
Alan Guinness. The guy that's under the mask. The not the white
I
dude
know,
when he
I-
takes the mask off
David
at the end.
Prowse.
Not David. No, that's not Prowse's face.
Oh yeah, no,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
right. Sorry.
You
Yeah.
mean
Oh.
in Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
the,
but I
the guy at
remember-
the end, yeah.
well,
who
at the end
actually-
of Jedi, when like his mask blows off and he's like just that old fat donut of a man.
I remember reading the reviews for that. When did that come out? 81? 83?
83.
No,
I was
Empire.
born
No, that
the
was
same year.
that was Return of the
Pretty sure
Jedi,
for-
83.
Yeah, for Jedi, yeah.
Okay, so whenever that came out, 80 or whatever it was, I remember I don't remember the reviewer's name, but in the Detroit Free Press, he wrote a very funny line. He said it was extraordinarily disappointing to finally see Darth Vader's face and find out he looks like your Uncle Norman. And I will never forget that line. And every time I've seen that movie, I'm like, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, there's a really good documentary called "I Am Your Father." It was made in 2015. It's a David Prowse documentary,
Mm.
and it's really interesting. Kind of talks about some of the struggles he had, not really getting any recognition for that
Yeah.
role at all.
Yeah, he gets more recognition from Clockwork Orange than he
Yeah.
does
Oh,
as
and-
Darth Vader.
And
You
being
see his
some
face.
and being some crosswalk guy in the UK.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean the changes that Lucas made, it's interesting because it is the first time that a director has tried to go back and put his vision into the movie that he couldn't make. You know, like when you look at like there's a documentary called Empire of Dreams, which really goes into like what Lucas was trying to do, you know, up into it and the stories that he did. And, you know, he gave the stories to that artist, Ralph McQuarrie, and they created everything based on what, you know, McQuarrie drew. but the story was so different, and it just kept changing every time he gave it. Like, he would give the movie to Spielberg, and Spielberg's like, I think it needs more, family dynamic to or whatever. And then he would give it to Scorsese, and Scorsese, it needs more like action, it needs more grit. And he kept changing it over and over again. Like, I have a book it was released in 1976, and it's a Star Wars, and it was the very first like story of what A New Hope turned into, and it was called The Adventures of Luke Skywalker. And when you look in the cover, it's like it's Luke, Princess Leia, these two droids that didn't have names, and then it was Chewbacca and his sidekick Han Solo. And it was the whole thing was like, people don't want to see a dog, and people didn't want to see this. And so it's very interesting how the evolution of this movie, it's a living movie, because it changes constantly. It even changed again once it hit Disney Plus. They added the McClunky thing, and they keep adding.
Did?
Yeah, they made Greedo say the word McClunky for some reason right before he gets shot, which turned into this Star Wars cuss word that means like Jabba pooped on you or something stupid. But they just keep evolving it, and I can't really tell how I feel about it, because to me, I have this movie, I have the memory, this is my movie. And when I watch it, over and over on different platforms, it subtly changes, but it's also not mine, and I have a hard time with that, because I don't own Star Wars, like I'm happy it exists. And I don't know if I have a right to complain about it changing. So I always have a hard time with the evolution of these movies, because I don't like most of them, but I get it.
So
Yeah,
when I was talking to Mark Anthony Austin, who did a lot of the visual special effects for the new edition, he kind of, I kind of got the impression that a lot of the technology and reason for redoing some of the original trilogy was because Lucas at the same time was writing the prequels, and they wanted then to test and then use the technology for the prequels. So part of the reason was to test it on the original 3 movies. The interesting thing about the original 3 movies being changed to special editions wasn't that he did it, it's that he destroyed all evidence of the original versions. That was the weird part. Like that they don't both exist. Even I do a save as when I'm working on something.
No save as for George.
Yeah, this is like
it's a little. It is a little bit egotistical,
Yeah.
It's like you're gonna watch it
course.
the way I want you to watch it, and only the way I want you to watch it.
But it is like Zach said, it's his movie.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, but
it's
isn't that what
both.
every
It's a little
director
both.
wants? You're going to watch my vision.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know.
But
and
it's
a living
weird
piece
that
of-
everybody's in the world had seen it the original way, and now you're telling them, "F you, watch it the way I want you to watch it." Now that I can do it the way that I want you to watch
Yeah,
it.
and
'cause,
somehow like a living piece of art, like this is somehow like continuously
Yeah.
progressing and changing, and it's not really
Yeah.
supposed to. We're supposed to have the original one shot, take that, and that's what we're supposed to keep. That's what we derive
Like-
memories from, what we join
Didn't
talking
know that
and
about
conversation about. So to move to this sort of, it's dynamic, it's always shifting. I mean, once again, like Zach said, to reiterate, it's not mine. I don't own it. So you have to let someone just
like as
do it,
if-
this megalomaniac.
So,
As if Da Vinci's great grandson found a document saying, "Hey, one day, long after I'm gone, if somebody could do what I really wanted to do, add a little shade around her eyes."
Yeah.
Right.
Just
I ran
take
out to the
Yeah,
black
yeah,
ink.
yeah.
and,
yeah, take out the museum glass.
Uh,
They figured out blue eyeshadow now, so let's take care of it.
Yeah.
So-
Good point.
So the prequels, I heard someone describe the prequels and then the sequels, and the way they described the prequels were bad movies but good Star Wars in the sense of the frame of the story and what was being told, and that the sequels were bad movies and bad Star Wars.
They're right on both counts.
I think that's reasonable.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I may be the lone person in this group who thinks this, but no, I told you I wasn't going to be a contrarian.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here.
But I had to say this. I do love Star Wars. I mean, how could I not? I was 14 when it came out. I love Empire Strikes Back. I love Return of the Jedi. Those are the first 3. They should have stopped there, because the only good movie after that was The Force Awakens. The rest of it, was all just, it's like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about trade agreements. I don't give a shit about any of this stuff. And I just, I'll say this for Lucas. He wrote such an enduring thing in the first movie that 8 other movies came after it, some of which were horrible. And yet they persist and they go on and they make billions. So what a genius this guy was. I don't know what it means in Hollywood. Who knows? I mean, it's all money at that point. It's like you were saying earlier, Zach. They were worried more about the toys in Empire than they were about the story. But I mean, literally the only movie of the last 6 was that I held that had that wonder again, which is hard to do for me, was The Force Awakens. To see Han Solo standing on the deck of the Millennium Falcon and telling these people, these new people, and indoctrinating them into the Star Wars universe, saying it's true, all of it. I mean, that hit me. I don't know, when did that movie come out? 2015?
Thereabouts.
Okay, so I'm a 53-year-old man at that time, and I felt such a rush. I felt like a 14-year-old kid again. I haven't had that feeling in any movie since. And but something, I mean, Lucas created something that is just indelible in the American psyche, if not the world psyche.
I don't think Lucas loved the sequels, and I said to Bob, I go, it's funny that the only other movie you like is the one that's exactly the same as Star Wars.
It's Star Wars, yeah.
It's Star Wars,
yeah. See, like I understand what they're doing with the prequels. The problem is that George Lucas has too much hands on the prequel. He's a great storyteller. He's not a good word writer. When his scripts are awful and he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand how humans talk to each other, which is crazy.
That's exactly
right. But like, when you look, and the thing about Star Wars is it's not just that it's a story about lore or space wizards. It's a culmination of so many things. It's what's his name? Brad Bird, the guy who did the sound effects, Bird. But it's the sound effects. It's John Williams, that score. That score. Brilliant. You could watch the prequels just for the score alone and be satisfied. It's because that movie is that score is forcing you to like this movie. And Duel of the Fates itself is probably the most impressive thing in Star Wars. That fight alone tells you how Star Wars is going to go. If Qui-Gon wins that, Anakin's somewhere different. If Obi-Wan wins that, Anakin's somewhere different. If Darth Maul wins that, Anakin's somewhere different. And it's the most impressive piece of what the lore is. The problem is that George Lucas has to write the script, and that's a problem. But
I think Spielberg did Duel of the Fates. I think he helped orchestrate. I think he helped.
He did what?
I think he helped direct that piece.
The race?
Oh, wow.
No, Duel of the Fates is the fight.
My only problem with that fight is 15 minutes before, they show this thing that the Jedis can do, which is a force dash. They can run super, super fast, like almost invisibly fast.
Right.
But then when these doors are slowly opening and shutting, that force dash would have come in pretty
handy. He pulled his hamstring. He was just a little sore after having done it previously. So.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to have a David Mamet script version.
Oh yeah,
of, just to see the characters communicating with each other.
My problem,
quick flipped back and forth.
Yeah, I agree with Bob with the with the prequels and saying the trade things, and Sith was good. The last one was good. I find Attack of the Clones almost unwatchable. And
very, very bad.
A lot of it was because they did they moved away from, I think the word was practical, where they used too much CGI. There was just way too much
Every
CGI.
scene
It wasn't
too long too. Everything was too long.
And what was with that terrible love story? They had the chemistry of like, I don't know, 2 otters. It was fun to watch for a minute, and you're like, all right, I'm bored.
Yeah.
2 otters.
It's like, what are we doing? It's like, hey, remember when you were 8, you creeped me out? I'll let you feed me a pear.
So my problem with my overall problem, and I may have mentioned this on the show at some point about something else, but my problem with the prequels is I have problem with home movies, meaning there's we all knew the story of 1, 2, and 3, right?
Oh, yeah.
Watching 4, 5, and 6, we knew the story of 1, 2, and 3. We knew Darth Vader came up. We knew he was trained and then something went wrong. We kind of knew what happened. But we all had it in our heads and it was fine, right? But when you go back and then try to actually make something that you put in people's heads for years, you can never match it. Like, Anakin built C-3PO. Oh, Boba Fett's all the stormtroopers. Like now everything has to connect somehow. And when you start to have to connect things, you have to start making weird decisions. And the only positive thing that came out of it was Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett, but many years later. So, but you know, you have to explain everything. Yeah, everything has to be just move forward. They should have just they had 4, 5, 6. They should have just gone 7, 8, 9. You know, that's my problem with Solo too. We didn't need to see the Kessel Run. I didn't need to know how he got his last name. I didn't need to know how he met Chewbacca.
Don't answer questions. That's the problem that Star Wars is trying to do. Don't answer questions. We don't care.
Answer any questions. No,
And
you know
honestly,
what I want to see? I want to see Rogue One, where it's like you get to find out how tough the Jedi actually are, seeing Darth Vader versus just a bunch of dudes.
The reason
and
Rogue
then to
One,
also see what Rebels had to go up against, to see what it took for the Rebels to take on the Empire. It showed you that, and that was something I really loved about Rogue One versus all the other ones where it's it's a bunch of space wizards with awesome swords and whatnot, but what's a dude doing? Like, what is the rebellion made of? That was really fascinating to see that.
Right. But the beauty of Rogue One, which is one of my favorite movies in the series, is while it's a home movie thing, it doesn't fall in the same thing because we had really never thought about that. It was just one sentence in that scroll, and they didn't work Han Solo into it, or you know, I mean, they didn't have to back. They had an entire thing where they all actually died at the end. So it's like nuts. it was a beautiful thing, and so that was great. That's why I love the Mandalorian. It was just a great story. I didn't necessarily love that they brought Luke Skywalker in because then they have to tie everything in again.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, what happens with Grogu? Does that mean that he dies? You know, because now you start piecing it together to the prequels, you know, so it's like, it could have been anyone. It didn't have to be. The lesson from the Mandalorian to me was it's an entire galaxy.
Yeah. We don't care about Skywalkers.
Tell a different story.
There's in everything, in sports, in storytelling, in movies, and on TV shows, there's a fine line all the time between nostalgia and hanging on to, and bleeding everything out of it. You know, like it's totally separate. But you know, we've talked about it before. I work in the NASCAR world, and it makes me nuts when they continue to push stories about Dale Earnhardt. It's like, okay, we get it, but can we not hang on? Like there's great young drivers right now. Let's talk about them. Stop talking about it's just move on. I don't need to. It's great. Once a year we can talk about them, and because fantastic.
Like the prequels to me are they're lore building. They're still trying to tell stories. They're still trying to you know, when you watch the original trilogy, you're like, well, I do want to see the Clone Wars. That sounds cool. I do want to see these Jedi Knights. That sounds cool. So the idea of the prequels all makes sense. It just isn't executed very well. Now the idea of the sequels, I have such a problem with these movies because they're all anti-movies. Like Force Awakens is an anti-prequel movie 100%. Last Jedi is an anti-Force Awakens movie 100%. The Rise of Skywalker is an anti-Star Wars movie 100%. I like The Last Jedi because I feel that, you know, out of the newer ones, I felt that it was one of the few movies that they were trying to do something that wasn't just, here's what Skywalkers do, you know, like you can only have a power if you're a Skywalker, and you have to be in this lineage to be part of this movies. And now, granted, it's not it's a very flawed movie, but out of the sequels, I find it to be the most engaging and the most entertaining. And
is that
probably
the second one?
That's the second one, yeah. And probably the second best sword fight out of the entire series.
That
outside
is bold.
of episode 3.
That is bold.
Episode
3 is the best.
Yeah, that's the best.
That's a tops.
That's probably the best sword fight I've ever seen in almost any movie. Their choreography in that is stunning. But
it's amazing.
Yeah, I just hate how much they're apologizing for things in these new movies, and that's my problem with you know, they don't know what they're doing.
I want to know why those speeders in the last movie had to dig into the salt and make red lines. And what the hell was that about? What's the point? Why would you have something digging into the ground as you're flying it? What is the point of that? It was so stupid.
You know why? So
you ever peel wheels?
Well, no,
Space engineering, Bob. Space engineering.
It was a visual trick to show you, if you were paying attention, that Luke really wasn't there.
I remember that point.
That's why they did it. They set that as a precedent. So
the whole thing
in a rewatch, you can tell. Oh, he really
in this
wasn't
movie.
there.
It is the best addition of a Jedi ever. The second Luke comes on screen, not one person dies, nothing bad happens, and he is a pacifist and he settles the fight and calms everyone down. That is the best you can see out of a Jedi. And I think Rian Johnson tried to understand what the Star Wars lore is instead of trying to sell stuff, which is what JJ does. But yeah, I mean, the salt stuff's stupid, but to show that Luke wasn't there because he wasn't making those steps was a gorgeous maneuver.
I love that, but I just, if you have a vehicle that is supposed to be speedy and you're going to go run at the Empire's, unbeatable machines, and no, we're gonna have these dig into the ground as we go. Why? Oh, we just have to.
Well, the thing that frustrates me about the prequels is that it was clear that they didn't have a plan. Like, say what you want. Like
Exactly.
Star
No
Wars
thread.
Episode 1, 2, and
No
4, 5,
tonal
and
thread.
4, 5, and 6 were really, I think, like either like one movie, and he kind of like when he originally wrote it, and then they broke it out. So it all was cohesive. I mean, they're just like making shit up. Oh, let's bring the Emperor back, or let's make everyone think for an entire year that Snoke is something. That Snoke is somebody, and then just kill him as if it was
nothing.
To bring the Emperor back on Fortnite was one of the worst things that Star Wars could have done. That was so terrible.
Hey, so can we talk about some ancillary Star Wars things?
Sure.
That I love. I mean, first of all, if you haven't had an opportunity to visit any of the Star Wars lands at the Disney properties, they're superb. If you're a fan of the movies, they are. The level of detail in those rides is incredible, and they're very, very fun. Just walking around the Star Wars areas at Disney World is pretty amazing. Just the beverages and the food at the concession stands and all those kind of things, which is just, again, amazing that they created this world that could be brought to life like that. So detailed in the movies that could be brought to life. But I also love the imprint on pop culture that endures for 45 years. You mentioned the Kessel Run, things like that. You'll hear that come up in various times in shows, or bullseyeing womp rats, and just the words that stuck in the lexicon of pop culture. But then there's also, I love the spoofs that have come out. Spaceballs is a brilliant movie, and obviously totally based on it. And then if you're a fan of Family Guy, the 3 Family Guy retellings of the Star Wars movies are amongst the funniest things I've ever seen.
Blue
and
Harvest
even better,
My
favorite moment is when they're talking about the Death Star in the first one, and it's like, it's totally indestructible, and the guy's like, he's like, yeah, you hesitated there for a second. He goes, it's no bigger than a womp rat. You'd never be able to hit it. And he's like, maybe we should get contractors to fix that.
And can we just put like something to cover it real quick?
He's like, well, if expense is no cost, we'll get estimates. Yeah, get estimates. Just
I
Robot
agree with
Chicken,
Jerry there.
The Robot Chicken Star Wars.
Robot Chicken did well. Yep.
I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for like Star Wars, Clerks wouldn't have been as good, because that Star Wars conversation in the middle is what made people go like, wait a minute. Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
thought about that before.
Independent contractors.
Yeah.
I'm a roofer. And
Yeah.
I know when I do a job, I
Yeah.
understand the risk.
Risk versus
Yeah.
reward. We get that as roofers.
That's a great discussion.
Yeah.
So I remember going as Star Wars as Darth Vader as a kid with the box costumes. Remember those where it was the
No.
mask?
Sure.
and the plastic thing?
Yeah.
So nice. And then yeah, I mean, I remember Howard, remember in high school we made that Star Wars movie for BBYO for our youth group. We made like a whole Star Wars thing. It was funny. And then I tell you, we mentioned toys a couple times, but the toys they have today have nothing on when Star Wars came out in Empire. And like you go to Toys R Us and an entire aisle, top to
massive.
bottom, was
Yeah.
all Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
I remember how upsetting it was when you started to go and it just would shrink. But I do want to make sure I mention before the show's over, on Netflix, there's a TV show called The Toys That Made Us. I think we've talked about the movies that made us.
Yeah.
And The Toys That Made Us, there's some really good ones. There's Power Rangers and a couple other ones. But one very specific must watch, a fascinating watch is the one on Star Wars and how Kenner got this contract and they made these toys. And it's a really fascinating.
I mean, because of
the
toys,
Power Rangers one's pretty good too, but
the He-Man one's good too. But because of the toys that
and
Star
Lego,
Wars,
there's one on Lego,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if it wasn't for Kenner, Empire Strikes Back to this day is the most successful indie movie ever made, and it was because of the money that Lucas brought in pre-selling toys, to Kenner, which also sold pre-sold toys to because you just got a box that year. I remember that year, like I was one of the kids that got that box, and it was like, you'll get your toys soon, don't worry.
Yep.
It's like, oh, man, well, all right, I gotta wait for this movie to come out for me to get my toys. But yeah, he's a mastermind when it comes to money making.
Oh yeah, getting the rights to the toys and stuff, that was brilliant.
So smart.
And again, it's something that the span of generations is crazy. When you go to Disney World and you go into the store where you have to now make reservations to build your lightsaber or build your droid, and you see 6-7-year-old kids. Like, I'm 53. I remember sitting in the movie theater for the first one, and these are 6-7-year-old kids. It's the Beatles of movies. It just
I mean, it's
beyond its time.
It's our Iliad. It's our Odyssey. It's that big giant statement that's stuck on us and is imprinted in our culture in such a way.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to be a part of it and kind of fun. It's been a blast
interesting
along the year.
And it's also interesting how like American, like, not like in a weird way, but it's like, it is as American as like Coca-Cola, like this is kind of like, it's a thing that we've created, and other cultures obviously do their thing. Like when you watch, speaking of like superfluous Star Wars, like Star Wars Visions, which is when you give a whole new culture a property that they didn't really grow up with. They don't have the nostalgia for it. So when they're hitting this stuff now, it's like, I just love the lore of this, and they give us the Japanese, the anime that just came out, but it's just so interesting that it is such a part of the world, and it's a movie, it's just a movie, and it sculpts people's lives, and it makes it's so cool.
Yeah, I often think about that. What series of films from, say, when my father was my age, were the movies that lasted for us the same way. The only thing I can think of, that I watched as a kid and was super excited about that were from his time, or maybe like the James Bond movies, the original, Connery, Roger Moore, really the Connery more than anything else, James Bond movies. Those are the only ones. Or, a movie like an epic like the 10 Commandments that I watched every year as a kid that he watched. Those are the only ones I could really think of.
Yeah, I had like Kelly's Heroes.
Sure.
Was one that stuck with me.
War movies.
Yeah. Like old
Yeah.
Westerns. That's about it. Yeah. Like Desperado. That's, I guess, mid 80s. But it's like the movies that my dad watches. But yeah, Star Wars is that link, and my daughter is a different generation, but Star Wars is a link. And it's
I think the MCU will do that. Certainly that those first whatever 15, 16 movies will be that way.
Right.
That's a good point, Jerry.
Wow,
Yeah.
Jerry. Very
You gotta hide-
true.
You gotta hide in
What
plain
movie?
sight.
What movie? Oh, it's in. I'm sad to say that I know this, but it's one of the lines I think from Pitch Perfect when they say Vader literally means father in German.
Right.
Yeah,
How did
exactly. Yep.
nobody understand
Yeah.
it?
How did no one see that?
Yeah.
Right. It's like Moses. Moses means to be drawn from the river.
Yeah.
Yep.
No one caught on.
He's
All
like, "Why
right,
am I
hey
on the
guys,
river?"
this was amazing. It was a blessing spending May the 4th with you, and May the 4th be with all you guys.
And also with you.
Thank you.
And also with you.
Zach, remind everyone where they can find you.
Oh my goodness. If you have anything that plugs in or takes batteries, whether it's some kind of electronic sock or an old pager that you stole from your father, type in Some Nobodies and you'll see all 97 of my shows, most of which now Casey shows up on, which is great. Award-winning No Time to Binge. Award-winning No Time to Binge. And also award-winning No Time to Binge. So check out
There
all
we
of my
go.
shows. We've won 3 awards.
Casey, tell everyone where you can go and let us know if you won any awards.
Y'all can find myself and the award-winning Scene Snobs podcast at thescenesnobs.com with my better half, Mick Manhattan. And we are actually gearing up for the Carolina Fear Fest. So check us out and tune in. And we have a Friday the 13th special coming up. So
All right.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Jerry.
Bob, say goodnight.
Oh, hey, come check out the Sal and Bob Show, Janetti's in Northville on May 19th. And Jeff, you will be headlining that on June. What did we have there? The 20,
I don't think you told me. Tell me now. I'll write it down.
Yeah, we told you already. You weren't listening.
I don't think you did.
We did. We said June. Anyway, maybe I didn't give you the date, but you'll get the poster. And then let's see, May 21st at Big Al's. I'm reading from my own website here. Big Al's, May 21st in Rockwood, Michigan.
You're doing
we
a
should
website
do
reading?
We should do a live show. We should do a live show. And I am Jeff Dwoskin, host of Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show, which will have a new name on Monday. So I won't
Rebranding?
rebranding. So I won't be saying that. And then I'll have to say, well, the old one was award-winning.
Are you taking your wife's
award-winning? Award-winning.
yourself award-winning.
Lots of award-winning.
Hey, to all the mothers and mother effers out there, happy Mother's Day.
Happy
Indeed.
Mom's Day.
Happy Mom's Day, everyone. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks. Love.
And that has been another episode of Crossing the Streams. Join us every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook and YouTube. Follow the Jeff Dwoskin Show on YouTube to be alerted every time we go live with your hosts, Jeff Dwoskin, Ron Lippett, Howard Rosner, Bob Phillips, Sal D'Amelio. We're all in the socials. Follow us. Listen to our podcasts, live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show, the Sal and Bob Show. Check them all out, and we'll see you next week and every week when we cross more streams right here. See you then.